Hello, my name. Welcome to the Harmless Holders Engineering Design Challenge. My name is Megan, and I'll be walking you through this challenge today. I'm a recent graduate from the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, where I obtained a bachelor's in robotics and mechanical engineering. And I'm an incoming mechanical design engineer, one at Medtronic, which is one of the largest medical device companies in the world. So what exactly is an engineer? You've probably heard of engineers, but you might not know exactly what engineers do. That's partly because engineering is such a big and complex field, and there's so many different types of engineers. Here's just one definition of an engineer. Engineers, as practitioners of engineering, are professionals who invent, design, analyze, build, and test machines, complex systems, structures, gadgets, and materials to fulfill functional objectives and requirements while considering the limitations imposed by practicality, regulation, safety, and cost. Well, that is a mouthful, to put it lightly. But most of what engineers do is we think about what is, and we don't just see that, we see what it becomes, which is why I put it in this quote from Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. Another reason why I put it in is today we're going to be talking about how engineers can help animals and the environment. Specifically, we're going to talk about the dangers of six-pack rings and what engineers can do to help. A lot of you have probably seen pictures like this with animals that have been strangled by these rings. You might have also seen pictures like on the top right, where animals have ingested trash, ultimately filling their bellies with plastic. Needless to say, this can be extremely harmful to the animals. And a lot of animals each year are killed by these six-pack rings. Well, there has been made some effort to help correct this problem by education in the community and encouraging people to cut the six-pack rings to decrease the chance that an animal gets stuck in there. They still pose a very real threat to animals. So you might be thinking, what can I do? And this is a very complex problem. When talking about environmental issues, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. But today we're going to be doing an engineering design challenge that will hopefully get you thinking a little bit more about what you can do. To do this activity, you're going to need 3 to 5 eager Girl Scouts. We recommend doing this activity in groups because as engineers, you often are going to have to work with other people, and you'll hopefully find throughout your career in engineering, if that's the path you choose, that the people you work with will help make you stronger. We don't recommend groups of above 5 because this is a somewhat small product and we want everyone to get a chance to be able to do hands-on. You're going to need 6 full cans of either soda, juice, or seltzer, anything that's going to come in that standard aluminum can. This is going to be crucial because this is going to be what you're going to test your design with. You're also going to need to create your design cardboard, printer paper, duct tape, wax paper, string, paint stirrer sticks, and rubber bands, and of course a pen and paper for design work. So for your holder, we have a few requirements. So the biggest one is it needs to be able to hold 6 cans of soda. If it can't do that, it's not going to be a very good 6-pack holder. And you're going to have a really hard time getting adopted, no matter how environmentally friendly it is. It also needs to be safe for animals, but we're going to leave what that means up to you. Sometimes as engineers, we're not given a full picture or a lot of details about what a requirement means, and we have to research it and think really hard about what that requirement means. So I want you to look at what are current problems with the 6-pack holder, whether through research or just looking at one, and come up with requirements from that. And we only want you to use the materials given, especially if you're doing this as part of a competition. We want it to be fair for everyone. So now we're going to get started on the design process. I will go over what you need to do in each step, but you'll need to pause the video in each step in order to take the time you need to go through the actual design process. So here is just one example of what the design process can look like. There are millions and millions of different versions of this, but most of them follow the same basic steps. The first thing you're going to need to do is identify the problem. We did part of this for you, but as we're going back to that safe for animals requirement, this is going to require you to identify what exactly is the problem with the current six-pack. Brainstorm and design, we are lumping these a little bit together for the convenience of time, but in a more advanced design, these would probably be two separate stages. So this is where you're going to start thinking about what a design can look like for the six-pack carrier. Usually with brainstorming, you want to throw out every idea, no matter how crazy it is. Design normally entails looking at maybe one or two ideas and getting into much more details. Build, which is one of my favorites, is you're going to start prototyping. And when you start in testing, once you have the prototype and evaluating, and what's probably going to happen is when you start evaluating your design, you're going to realize that there's something you did not account for. So you're going to have to go back to the build stage and the design stage and remedy whatever problem you had. And at the very end, as good engineers, we want to share our solutions. We don't want to just keep them to ourselves because they're not going to do a lot of good if we're the only ones who know about it. So it's design time. If you haven't split into your teams, you should do that now. So the first thing you're going to want to do before you start doing any design is you want to look at the current six-pack holder. You can either find images online or you can probably find one around your house. They're a problem because they're very common. And you need to figure out what makes them so dangerous to animals. This, depending on the time that you have to complete this challenge, it may include a deeper dive with parental consent through the internet to find research through these sites. If not, you can just look at it from the pictures that we've given and your own knowledge. Now you're going to get out that pen and paper that you needed earlier, and you're going to sketch out possible ideas. As engineers, there's a lot of different tools that we use in order to sketch out our design. But even with all of the amazing technology we have, pen and paper has always been one of the number one ways to get your ideas out there. And remember, you're working together as a group. You guys are going to have crazy ideas, and sometimes those crazy ideas are the ones that end up being the best. So don't be afraid to throw out some bad ideas. And at the end of all of this, you're going to decide as a group which one idea you want to go forward with. If you were if you were a professional engineering team, you'd probably have multiple that you would prototype at the same time. But because your groups are very small and you are limited on time, we want you just to go forward with one idea. So pause the video here while you take some time to follow these steps. Okay, so hopefully you took some time to do your design. Before we move on to the next step, one thing that we're going to recommend, and one thing that we would do normally with you if we were able to be in person, if I was able to be with you in person today, is we would have somebody from outside your group take a look at your project. This happens at all levels of engineering. Even as a professional engineer, you bring people in because sometimes you get so wrapped up in your idea and it's an amazing idea, and usually it is that you sometimes miss little things. So it is just a way before you start building to get to understand your idea better. Some ideas for people to look at your designs might be Girl Scout volunteers, like troop leaders, your parents, or even older Girl Scouts or other Girl Scouts in your troop. So I'll give you another chance to pause your video while you have someone look over your design. Okay. So now that you've gone through the initial design stage and you've had somebody look at your design, it's time to build. So hopefully you've already got all the materials that you need to complete this challenge. Please, one thing that is really important to note during this stage is you probably are going to find problems in your design. That's not a bad thing. It actually means you did a really good job of testing and being an engineer. So don't be afraid to go back into that design stage to better come up with the prototype, because I assure you, if you do, you're going to have a better design at the end. The more cyclical this process is, the better the design you're going to have. Unfortunately, if you are doing this with your troop, you may have a time limit. So be aware if your troop leader is setting a time limit on this. And I am once again going to give you time to pause this video and complete your build. Okay. Welcome back. I hope you guys had fun building and that you were able to solve a lot of your problems and challenges. So now that you guys have your final design, it's time for presentations. As previously stated, good engineers know how to convey their ideas and convince people that their ideas are worth adopting. Because your idea does you no good if it just sits in your room like a trophy. Engineers design products that people all over the world can use. So some ideas for people to present to is your troop and your family, and even younger Girl Scouts. And when you do your presentation, you not only want to show your design, but the reason why you're designing it in the first place. So talk about the dangers of the current six-pack holder and how your unique solution can help with that. I will pause this video. You can pause this video once again. And we also would recommend that you decide to present possibly outside of the time frame of the video. So you might not be done with presenting if you want to present to people that are not here today, but we want to go ahead and do a recap with you guys. So we have some questions that we would recommend you discuss with your teammates, as well as other teams that may have completed this challenge with you. You can feel free to add more questions and more topics to discuss. These are just our suggestions. And they are, how did your final design differ from your original? Many people show the design process to be circular instead of linear. Why do you think this is? And how can engineers help make common products safer for animals? We're once again going to let you pause the video here. Now that you've thought about some questions, you might be wondering, what else can you do? Well, as engineers, there's a lot you can do to help the environment. So here's some possible careers that you can take if you found today's lesson particularly interesting. Mechanical engineers, which I am a mechanical engineer, so I'm a little biased that this is one of the best forms. But basically what a mechanical engineer does is we research, design, develop, build, and test various devices. This is super broad. It's actually the most broad form of engineering and the most versatile, which I think is one of the reasons it is the most fun form of engineering. There's a lot of different disciplines you can go into. I am a design engineer, so I work with a mechanical design engineer. So I work to create products, particularly products that move. There's also materials engineers who look at creating different materials if you really like chemistry. There's manufacturing engineers that look at processes involved in manufacturing. and help make them more environmentally friendly, more smooth, more efficient, and overall just better processes. So some products that mechanical engineers may work on that are somewhat similar to the product that you just did is materials. Mechanical engineer might develop a biodegradable plastic so that you wouldn't have to change the design, just the materials. They might develop a manufacturing process that limits the pollutants that are produced. Or they might just design products with less plastic or other harmful materials. Another career you might consider is an industrial designer. Industrial designers develop the concepts for manufactured products such as cars, home appliances, electronics, and toys. They combine art, business, and engineering to make products that people use every day. So a mechanical engineer is probably going to be a little more technical, more back end. An industrial designer will take what a mechanical engineer designed and make it more easier for the general public to use and more user friendly. So some projects that an industrial designer may work on is designing a package that reduces plastics, helping introduce a more environmentally friendly packaging material. And the last engineering position that we're going to talk about is an environmental engineer. So environmental engineers work to prevent, control, or remediate any hazards to the environment using their engineering expertise. So it's probably the most straightforward way if you are excited about the environment and helping the environment to get involved as an engineer. Some projects that you could work on as an environmental engineer would be to monitor facilities that produce plastics to ensure they do not release harmful chemicals into the water, either as a consultant or as a full-time employee. Or you can work for government as a nonprofit to evaluate water and soil to ensure there aren't dangerous chemicals being dumped. So before you leave, we wanted to do a little bit of a closing. Hopefully you had a really fun time and you might be wondering how can you continue this project forward. In addition to presenting your ideas to other people, like we talked about in earlier slides, you can research other problems that threaten animal species because there are no shortage of them, and come up with engineering solutions with the engineering design cycle. The more you go through the engineering design cycle, the more it's going to become like second nature to you, and the more complicated designs you're going to be able to create. Other things you might want to consider doing is researching how engineers are helping animals in ocean cleanup. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of cool work going on. If you want to be a little more proactive, you could start a recycle drive in your hometown, either at your school, your place of worship, or any other facility that you go to often. Or you can create an education campaign to show the dangers of ocean waste to share with your family and friends. But we wanted to leave with this note. Another quote from the Lorax, since this is an environmental themed engineering challenge. And it is, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. You have the ability to do a lot more than you think. And whether you go that route with an engineer, like me and most of my friends have chosen, as a politician, as a community leader, or any other route that you see fit, you have a lot of power, but you have to care and you have to put in the work. But you can make a big difference if you do. So I hope you enjoyed this engineering activity. And hopefully this will be the first of many.